Sonic the Hedgehog has made a big splash at movie theaters worldwide, and in typical Sega fashion, they have nothing to really follow it up with. One of the most important pieces of video gaming history is currently up for auction, the most expensive Nintendo system ever that costs way more than your house did. Another interesting piece of video game history has been discovered, a game that many thought would never see the light of day, and finally, some more Nintendo Switch games have leaked recently due to ratings boards in Korea, and we definitely need to talk about them. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of video game news. So the Sonic the Hedgehog movie has had a very interesting life cycle. Of course, when it was first unveiled that Sonic was getting a movie, a lot of people were very curious about it, myself included. And then we got the first trailer and it was just like, what is this? It looked like a child inside of a strange furry suit that was maybe done to sort of resemble Sonic the Hedgehog, and this is what they put into the movie. It really didn't look anything like Sonic, and it just didn't seem like it was going to be a very good movie. Well, of course, there was a lot of backlash towards this. A lot of people that were looking forward to this movie or potential Sonic the Hedgehog fans then went to the internet with outcries and saying, yo, this looks like crap, they need to do something about it, and of course the movie was delayed. A redesigned version of Sonic the Hedgehog was then introduced to the public, and everyone was like, okay, this looks a hell of a lot better. Maybe this movie will succeed. Well, succeed it has. It is now the highest grossing film for an opening debut in video gaming history. Sonic the Hedgehog movie has grossed over $100 million worldwide, and it's absolutely fascinating to see this be the most successful video game movie of all time. Up until this point, Detective Pikachu was the most successful video game movie, but I think Sonic the Hedgehog definitely seems to deserve it. It's got great reviews over on Rotten Tomatoes. It's currently sitting at a 63, which is honestly very high for a video game movie, and even Jim Carrey went on record as saying that he was happy with the fan feedback that was done from the initial trailer because it really helped make for a better movie. Now, as far as my impressions go with the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, I haven't seen it yet. I don't really go to the movie theater. The last time I went to the movie theater was to see Terminator 3. Yes, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. I think I was in high school around that time. I don't know, I had a free ticket, so I went. But yeah, I don't go to the movie theater often, but I will be checking it out when the movie comes out. But really, one of the things that I find absolutely fascinating about this is just seeing how successful the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is, and Sega is doing absolutely nothing to follow it up. There's no game based on the movie or just a new Sonic game in general. And you would think that Sega would want to do something like this because obviously people are talking about Sonic the Hedgehog. It is the highest grossing video game film of all time in its opening debut weekend. Now, interestingly enough, Sega did do one thing with Sonic the Hedgehog on February 14th, which is when, of course, the movie released worldwide, and that was they uploaded a trailer for the Sonic and the Olympics mobile game. Yep. That's what they decided to do. They decided to follow up all of the good publicity that Sonic the Hedgehog is getting by talking about a mobile game. And I don't think the mobile game necessarily looks bad, but it just seems like a traditional Sega mistake to not have a game to sort of follow up with this movie. It doesn't even necessarily need to be based on the movie. I think just talking about a new Sonic game while Sonic the Hedgehog is very popular would have been a very good thing. Now, you could obviously judge the quality of the Sonic the Hedgehog games that we've gotten in recent memory, but still, it's definitely great to see Sonic the Hedgehog back, and a lot of people are positive about the character. I just wish Sega would do something to sort of follow it up. Next up, one of the most important pieces of video gaming history is currently up for auction, and that, of course, is the Nintendo PlayStation. Now, in case you are unfamiliar with what the Nintendo PlayStation is, basically Nintendo and Sony were working on a CD-based device for the Super Nintendo, much like Sega had with the Sega CD. That partnership ended up falling apart, and Nintendo ended up working with Philips instead, and we got those awesome CDI Zelda and Mario games, and of course, Sony ended up pursuing the PlayStation and making it its own console. Well, several prototypes are supposedly out there in the wild, but only one has really been discovered and put around in the internet, and that is, of course, Terry Diebold's Nintendo PlayStation system. Now, this system does work. The Super Nintendo cartridge slot does work. Of course, the CD drive doesn't play any games because no games were ever really fully developed for it, but Ben Heck, who is a very popular technological YouTuber, actually fixed the CD drive of this system so that it would allow to play basically music CDs on this system. Well, it is currently up for auction right now, and it is currently currently sitting at $350,000. The auction will be ending in about 10 days on February 27th, and a lot of people are anticipating this could potentially hit the $1 million mark. What's actually very interesting about this, though, is that supposedly Terry Diebold, who is the owner of this particular Nintendo PlayStation system, was offered like $1.2 million for it at one point in time, but he actually passed up on it. So it'll be interesting to see if that will end up being a mistake for him. Obviously, this system is going to go for a premium price, but what's interesting is there's a lot of people in the community right now, in the retro gaming community, saying that this isn't the only one out there in the wild, that there are more out there. So I'm very interested to see if more of these start to pop up now that this one is being sold, and sort of what condition that these are going to be in compared to this one. It's obviously a very exciting time. I'm very interested to see how much this will go for. If I had to take a guess, I would say $700,000. That's going to be my price. What do you think, though? Let me know in the comments section down below. One way or another, though, I'm not buying this. No. And speaking of video game history, one of the games that a lot of people were anticipating during the GameCube and the Xbox era that never came to be was, of course, Starcraft Ghost. Now, Starcraft Ghost was a big departure from the original Starcraft games, which, of course, were real-time strategy games. That's what Blizzard was known for at that time. But Blizzard decided they wanted to do a sort of third-person shooter game based within the Starcraft universe, and Starcraft Ghost was that game. It started out as a GameCube game and then was moved to the Xbox and then ultimately canceled. And people thought that they would never be able to play Starcraft Ghost in any way, shape, or form. Well, Starcraft Ghost was recently allegedly discovered on a leaked Xbox development kit from the original Xbox, and some people took to YouTube and actually uploaded footage of this game. For the first time, people are playing Starcraft Ghost, and I think the game itself looks pretty interesting. I don't know how much footage I'm going to show here. I don't know how protective Activision and Blizzard are going to be over this footage, but you can see that this game honestly doesn't look that bad. It definitely looks like a product of the times. Some of the shooting mechanics seem a bit wonky, but this was obviously in development, so I feel like the game would have been more refined. There's some sort of stealth elements going into this as well, and it just looks like a very interesting build of the game. Sort of a glimpse into what could have been, what would have been Blizzard's first real major departure from real-time strategy games, because like I said, they weren't doing things like that. I'll have a link to the full video of Starcraft Ghost gameplay in the description box down below if you want to check out the full video. It's about 7 minutes or so long, but I think the game showed a lot of potential and it showed a lot of promise. Now, what will be interesting to see is if this playable build ends up getting leaked within the Xbox community so that other people can check out this game as well. I honestly hope it does. This is good for things like video game preservation, because obviously this was never intended to see the light of day, but I feel like there is a market for things like this and people will want to experience this game. Honestly, I kind of want to play it because I think it looks really cool. And finally, while we sit and wait patiently for the next Nintendo Direct to be announced, I mean, I've been pretty patient about it, I think, right? Well, ratings boards across the globe are doing God's work by talking about games that we weren't familiar with for the Nintendo Switch. Of course, a couple weeks ago on the channel, we talked about how the BioShock collection is potentially coming to the Nintendo Switch, and it's been leaked amongst different ratings boards all across the world, with the most recent one being the Korean rating boards, talking about the BioShock collection for the Nintendo Switch, which I think would be a really welcome addition. Well, yesterday, 2 more games popped up on the Korean ratings board that were Nintendo Switch games we didn't know anything about. The first game is Catherine Full Body. Now, Catherine originally released on the PlayStation 3 back in about 2011. It got a large cult following and then was re-released on the PlayStation 4 as Catherine Full Body, which was the definitive edition of the game. Basically, Catherine is a strange sort of game. I've never played it or anything like that, but I do know how the game works. During the daytime, it is basically a dating simulator. During the nighttime, within the nightmare stages, which is when the most gameplay happens, it's a puzzle platformer game that, I don't know, it just looks kind of over the top and crazy. But like I said, it does have a very big cult following. Now, Catherine, of course, was developed by Atlus, and Atlus is owned by Sega, and of course, during the latest financial report, Atlus did say they wanted to expand their catalog of games to systems like the Nintendo Switch because of poor sales for certain games that just didn't really meet the mark for them. So I think Catherine Full Body on the Switch makes sense. I could see this game being a popular game amongst Nintendo Switch owners. There's a lot of sort of these style of games on there that seem to do really well. I personally won't be checking it out, maybe if it's on sale or something like that, but definitely an interesting game. Now, the second game is definitely a game that I will be checking out and I think shows a lot more promise, and that is XCOM 2. Now, what's interesting about XCOM 2 is that this is a 2K game, and of course, 2K has been sort of upping their production on the Nintendo Switch and saying that they want to do more things on it. We saw things like Civilization, of course, NBA 2K and WWE 2K, but XCOM 2 is, of course, a fantastic game. It is a strategy game. If you've played Mario vs. Rabbids, it's sort of like that in terms of gameplay, except it's a lot more mature and a lot more over the top with aliens and things like that, and a very visually impressive game as well. Now, what's interesting about XCOM 2 is that the game was originally done by Feral Interactive, and we know that Feral Interactive is a company that does great work on the Nintendo Switch with games like Alien Isolation and Grid. So Feral Interactive is the one that will be doing the Nintendo Switch version of this game according to the Korean's ratings board. So I'm completely on board with this. I think this game will end up being a fantastic port. Hopefully it has all of the downloadable content from the original release back in 2016, I believe it came out. So this is very promising, and it just sort of shows you that a Nintendo Direct more than likely is coming. These are big third-party games that would be talked about in something like a Nintendo Direct, things like BioShock, Catherine, and XCOM 2. But I do have one question though for these third-party developers. Where the hell is my Batman Arkham collection? I want a Batman Arkham collection on the Nintendo Switch so I can take a dump and play these games at the same time. It makes perfect sense. These games are absolutely awesome. Please, please, somebody port them to the Nintendo Switch. But yeah, we got two new games to talk about with the Nintendo Switch, with Catherine Full Body and XCOM 2. Alright, so that's going to do it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said at the start of the video, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, and be sure to let me know your thoughts about everything in the comment section down below. Did you see the Sonic movie? Did you enjoy it, or do you avoid the movie theater like I do? What do you think about the Nintendo PlayStation? Are you putting in a bid on it and selling your house and all your possessions so that you can own something that plays Super Nintendo games? What do you think about the Starcraft Ghost footage? Like I said, there's a link in the description box down below if you want to see the full video. And will you be interested in checking out Catherine Full Body and XCOM 2 on the Nintendo Switch? And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.